I'll sing and I'll hope we can meet again someday. And hear Jamie play the places of good times and the faces of old times, once shining.
I'm delighted to welcome to Jazz by Request the multi-award winning jazz vocalist, songwriter, pianist and radio host Ian Shaw. Ian has been described by Jazz Times in the US as the greatest male vocal jazz singer the UK has to offer. Hi Ian.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. We've just seen an extract from the video We Stopped Talking, which you've just released with pianist Jamie Safir. Can you tell us a little bit about the song?
I live pretty much in central London and I'm very conscious of the homeless situation since lockdown, in fact, because a lot of the rough sleepers have been moved on, and some of them have moved themselves because there's no one there to look after them, to give them the odd fiver or to give them food. And a lot of the distribution points in central London have closed down, certainly some of the hostels as well. So they're moving to the outskirts. So where I live in Lambeth, which is just over the bridge. And I'm noticing a lot of rough sleepers having a terrible time because you can't really give them money because of the whole nature of, social distancing. And I thought it'd be nice to combine that with my ongoing work with a refugee charity, which I've been a trustee of for 5 years, called sidebyside.refugees.org. And my lovely buddy Jamie and I came up with this. In fact, I've got the book right here. We were inspired by my friend Robert Elms's book, which is called London Made Us, a memoir of a shape-shifting city. And I got the idea of a sort of love letter to London and all that it throws up and all that it's thrown up in my lifetime. And that's how the song came about. We Stopped Talking came about from a conversation that Robert used to have with his father about politics and music every Sunday after lunch. And then when his father died, when Robert was a little kid, the conversation stopped. So we stopped talking and he started walking. So as a young teenager, he started walking the streets of London. So that's where the song came about.
Ian, I want to talk to you about your new album, but before I do, I know that you're pretty involved with Ronnie Scotts and you present the Ronnie Scotts radio show on Jazz FM. How did this all start?
I feel like I've known Ronnie Scotts since I left home. I'm from North Wales and I used to sort of sneak in there literally under people's coats when I was 18, 19 years old to see all these amazing players. And later on, thanks to a great guy called Brian Blaine, who used to be a big cheese at the Musicians Union, he sent a tape of my band Brave New World to Ronnie Scotts and I got the gig. And it was a kind of rock funk outfit, which I co-formed with a keyboard player called Adrian York. And Ronnie heard me sing and said, "Oh, you should sing jazz." And I used to sit in with his band and he'd write down lots of titles of songs that he grew up with, which eventually became one of my albums. Sadly, didn't play on it because he said he was playing like Bill Clinton at the time. And then years later, I was just asked whether I would like to carry on with the Ronnie Scotts show, which had started with a wonderful broadcaster and a very good friend of mine called Jumoke Fashola, and she moved on to the BBC, and I took over at Jazz FM, just doing this one show which we syndicate all over the world. And it's fun because I get to interview all my heroes, really, which over the years who've become quite good friends of mine. Recently, I interviewed George Benson. We have Gregory Porter. So it's and with lockdown, people are quite eager to talk about their music in a way that they couldn't before, because maybe they were on the road or they were tired or they were rehearsing. So we couldn't normally do these wonderful things that you do. So this has given us time, because I feel like I haven't sung for 9 weeks. It's given us time to reflect on all this, and radio is a great. I'm very lucky that's continuing, and I'm able to do it here with my clever little microphone.
So you've released some 15 albums now. The latest is What's New, which is a collaboration with the piano genius Jamie Safir and the legendary jazz saxophonist Ian Bellamy. I know that Ian's appeared on 4 of your previous albums. How did the three of you meet? And how did the idea come about of releasing this album?
Jamie Saphir, I met him when he was just 20, 21, I think. He was at the Guildhall School of Music, and his nana, I met his grandmother up in Cheshire doing a workshop, and she's a wonderful singer. And she said, "Oh, you need to meet our Jamie. He's gone down to London." And I'm like, yes, this always happens when you do gigs. And I did, and we clicked as not just as friends, but we love the same kind of music. And he loves working with singers. And he knew Ian Ballamy through the Guildhall School of Music. A lot of his friends had lessons with Ian Ballamy. And Ian I've known since 1483. I used to go and hear Ian play with loose tubes at Ronnie Scotts.
The album features new arrangements of songs of love and hope, with classics by Leonard Bernstein and Burt Bacharach and Hal David. Where do you start when choosing songs for an album? And why did you choose the songs that you did?
Well, I think an album has to sort of capture where you are in your life, really. And this particular album came from Ian Ballamy. His father and his mother fell in love to a lot of those songs, a lot of those standard songs. And he recently lost his father, so it was a fitting tribute, really, to Ian's dad, who died, and his mother, who's still very much around. And there's a song on there called I'll Only Miss Him When I Think of Him, which was famously recorded by Frank Sinatra. Because I'm a gay man, I didn't sing what he sang, I sang him instead of her. And it seemed to work, because it was a great tribute to, that was the song that started the whole album, really. Some of his choices were quite strange. I didn't expect him to choose the Bacharach, for example, but Ian loves a good melody as well. So that's how it came about. And Jamie came up to the plate and was fantastic. And instantly they created arrangements on the spot in the studio.
So the album was recorded at Cooper Hall in Somerset. Why did you choose this venue, and how long did it take to record the album?
Well, I think it took 2 or 3 days. We rented a cottage in this amazing place, Cooper Hall, which is in the estate of a very nice married couple who put on concerts, recitals and workshops in this stunning purpose-built concert hall. And it's a beautiful acoustic space. So we recorded the album with a great engineer called Ben Findlay, who's worked with Van Morrison, Peter Gabriel, and he's also local. So what you hear really is what you get. We didn't really repair anything or do any tuning or edit anything. We just chose what we thought was the most fitting version of the songs. We did 2 or 3 takes of each song and then chose the best ones, I hope, anyway.
I noticed to my mind that there are a couple of missing instruments, drums and bass. What made you decide to exclude these from the album?
Well, most of my albums are quite textured and quite full from, orchestra, strings, guitar, backing vocals. I did 2 albums recently on the Jazz Village, the French label. Where I layered up my own voices to make a gospel choir, and I just thought it'd be nice to sort of return to that very intimate, almost chamber sound. And Jamie is the kind of pianist that has this inner pulse. So he plays completely orchestrally when he's playing. And then when he's soloing, it then condenses into a different kind of moment and we can step back. So it would only work with certain piano players, I think. But with him, it certainly does work.
Ian, several of your albums are available on vinyl as well as CD and download. Was there any particular reason, or do you just like vinyl?
Well, I love vinyl. I mean, I've got thousands of albums. I call them records, really. I'm old enough to be able to call them records, not vinyl. But I love the warmth and the crackle, always have done. Like a lot of people, I went for years, probably 20 years, without having a record player, and maybe I think I gave a lot of my albums away. Some of them I cherished. I've got the original David Bowie gatefold here, Aladdin Sane, with an amazing sort of middle, which I had when I was a kid. And my friend Linda Lewis, who sang on this album, came for dinner recently and with her lovely dog, and we got very drunk, and I said, "You need to sign this album," because she sings on it.
I know you've released some of the songs on video, which were filmed during the lockdown. We're going to see a clip now from Once Upon a Summertime, composed by Michel LaGrant, who sadly we lost last year.
Now another winter time has come and gone. The pigeons feeding in the square have flown, but I remember when the vespers chimed. You loved me once upon a summertime.
That's a great song. I understand you once worked alongside Michel LaGrant.
Well, it only happened once. It was in Boston, and it was probably about 12 years ago, I think. And it was him guesting. It was 4 singers, and we were guesting with the Boston Pops Orchestra, and he was the guest piano player playing his arrangements. And I sang What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life. He was going to do a concert this year at the Royal Festival Hall, and the promoter, James Albrecht, at Fame Productions, decided he'd carry on with the concert, but without him. So a lot of the artists that were lined up to perform, Maria Friedman, Tamsin Little.
Sadly, he died last year, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So he wasn't there, but it was an extraordinary night, and I got to sing Once Upon a Summertime that night alongside, Alison and the other performers, and also Benjamin LaGrant, his son, who sort of co-compared the evening with Jeremy Sams, the theatre director and producer. So it was a very special night, full of huge LaGrant enthusiasts, and it's quite nerve-wracking playing in front of fans of a particular composer. But I like to think that I do my own thing with things anyway, so people understand that. I'm fairly faithful to the original melody and chords. And Once Upon a Summertime, I think, is a very beautiful, it's almost like a suspended breath on a summer's day. So when we did the video in lockdown, I nearly got arrested because I was standing opposite MI5 or MI6, because I live very close to the river here, and I was filming myself. It was like, a classic, "Excuse me, sir." But and Jamie filmed himself in his garden, and Ian, who lives in a beautiful house in Somerset, filmed all these beautiful images of him and his dog and his saxophone, and it came together really well.
Ian, you had a European tour plan which got cancelled because of the lockdown. Do you have any plans for some new dates, assuming we can all start attending gigs again later on this year?
Nobody knows really, Steve. It's one of those. It's for the first time in my lifetime, the whole world is on pause, isn't it?
It is.
And all the things that we're used to need to take either a different turn, or we just need to pause even further and just accept the consequences. And economically, I'm very conscious of how things are going to fall apart, and it could take many, many years to rebuild them, especially with the arts.
So I guess I should ask you what you're working on now and what the immediate future holds.
I talk for a living, so I thought, and I love to write. I have loads and loads of pieces of prose that I've written, and I just thought it'd be nice to do a podcast. So I'm going to do one. Jamie's going to produce it. Wonderful Howard Lester, who runs the website, he's going to look at it as well. I've got my friend Tristan Ryder, who's a composer, to write the theme music for it. So it might be fun, or it might not be fun. I don't know. I'll do a pilot and see how it goes. And I'm also doing new arrangements of David Bowie and Joni Mitchell songs for a new project, which is hopefully going to be a live project with my trio. And I also work with an Italian trio I'm very proud of as well. And we have an album called Integrity, and that's Enzo Cirilli on drums, Tommaso Scanapieco on bass, and Alessandro Di Liberto on piano. And we're putting a little single out soon called People, which is the famous Julie Stein, Barbara Streisand one. So that a video, it goes up next week, I think, on YouTube.
Ian, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure for me, and I wish you every success for the future.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your support. And that's a beautiful shirt. I'm very jealous.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's about all we've got time for this evening. I'll be back in a couple of weeks, so I hope you'll be able to join me then. You can find all the links relating to this episode on our website, ultimate-stream.live. But for now, I'm going to leave you with Once Upon a Summertime from the latest album, What's New, by Ian Shaw. See you soon.
Once upon a summertime, if you recall, we stopped beside a little flower stall. A bunch of bright forget-me-nots was all I'd ever let you buy me. Once upon a summertime, just like today, we laughed the happy afternoon away and stole a kiss at every street cafe. You were sweeter than the blossoms on the tree. I was as proud as any man could be, as if the man had offered me the key to Paris. Now another winter time has come and gone. The pigeons feeding in the square have flown, but I remember when the vespers chimed. You loved me once upon a summertime. I was as proud as any man could be, as if the man had offered me the key to Paris. Now another winter time has come and gone. The pigeons feeding in the square have flown, but I remember when the vespers chimed. You loved me once upon a summertime.